every single study looking at carbohydrates as a fuel source. Let's look all the way back to over 100 years ago. 600 different research articles we assessed, over 160 different sports performance studies that looked at metabolism during exercise studies. And we synthesized all this data. And what we were seeing was that the signal for performance wasn't what the 1960s technology of muscle biopsies showing muscle glycogen was indicating, or the putting on a gas mask and seeing, oh, wait, it's the amount of carbs or fat you burn. That also seemed to not predict it. What predicted was something completely different, Nick. And that's something we discovered in another randomized controlled trial. Because after that first trial, Nick, a lot of people reached out to us and said, well, they performed in short, intense forms of exercise, but there is no way they would perform in a prolonged, strenuous exercise bout to exhaustion, quote unquote, hitting the wall like a triathlete event. And we said, that's a really good point, because those people are consuming huge volumes of carbohydrates. They're recommended to consume at least 60 to 90 grams per hour. Some people are pushing 120 to 200 grams per hour. And so let's look at that. Let's actually look at Ironman competitors. So we actually did the same controlled style of study, very controlled all those key variables, randomized controlled trial. But now we recruited Ironman competitors, people who were competing or had completed an Ironman and were still active in the sport. And we asked them, we want you to come in and we're not going to do 6 weeks on the ketogenic diet. Like, we want to make sure you're in this diet. And we want you to do a performance bout at the end of it, Nick. We want you to go all the way until you can't go anymore. So hitting the wall.
Hitting the wall.
And so, yeah, so we want them to perform up to their 70% of their VO2 max. We want them to do it for as long as they possibly can, all the way to the point where they actually reach pure fatigue and actually get potential indications of what is causing that fatigue. And what we found is, when comparing the ketogenic diet for 6 weeks versus the high carb diet in the same athlete, again, controlling environments and their genetics, we found that yet again, on these very low carbohydrate ketogenic diets, they performed exactly the same. Okay, high levels of fat oxidation. And again, was telling us, okay, there's clearly the ability to perform in the absence of carbohydrates. And obviously fat is an important part of that. But we took it a step further, Nick, because we know that these diets reduce muscle glycogen. We know that they reduce the amount of carbohydrates you oxidize and burn. But what we were also seeing, Nick, is that we had set up the design to also assess the amount of circulating blood metabolites in the form of blood glucose levels. And when we looked at blood glucose levels, we were seeing that these athletes were getting hypoglycemia at the end of their exercise, because they were going for so long on their exercise that they were actually hitting the wall. And when we looked at it, they were hitting hypoglycemia.
Blood sugar levels were going below where they should be.
Yes, the levels of blood sugar they had were dropping over time to the point where they would reach a certain threshold and cause them to hit fatigue and early exercise cessation, or stopping exercise early. So what we did is we said, you know what? We're going to trickle in just enough carbohydrates to control blood sugar levels. Okay, so we're not going to do the 60 to 90 grams per hour, which the sports nutrition guidelines recommend. Not, Gatorade Sport Institute, Institute for Sports Science and Nutrition, ISSN, CSM, Dietetics Association, they all say at this type of exercise, 60 to 90 grams per hour, and you should be consuming 5 to 12 grams per kilogram of body weights, which is, for an average body weight male, if they're doing a lot of exercise at a high end, that could be 400 to over 1,000 grams of carbohydrates, okay?